Welcome to At Issue. I'm H. Wayne Wilson. Thank you so much for joining us for a discussion about the City of Bloomington issues with the newly elected mayor and newly seated mayor, Terry Renner. Let me introduce Terry to you. Terry is an Illinois Wesleyan professor of political science. You got your degree from
American University.
American University. And you, in terms of politics, you were on the McLean County Board from 1998 to 2010.
That's correct.
And this is your second run for mayor, first successful run. Congratulations.
Correct. Well, thank you very much, Paige.
You lost by 15 votes to Steve Stockton 4 years ago.
That's right.
But in this race, it was a three-way race with, and as a reminder, it was John Hanson, Lex Green, and you. And you beat them combined 51% to 49%. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. Actually, that was surprising. I didn't think that anyone would have a majority of the votes in a three-way race.
But in view of that fact, you came out and said, well, it's clear that the voters are looking for a change, and I'm going to be a mayor, and I'm going to be a policymaker. What does policymaker mean?
It means that as the only city elected official chosen from throughout Bloomington, each of the individual 9 aldermen are chosen from their respective wards or districts. The mayor has all kinds of responsibilities. The mayor has actual executive authority to make the agenda, set the policy-making agenda for the council. And the mayor, I think, has a broader moral obligation to speak out on critical issues and to identify critical policies that should be pursued to solve problems. The other thing, of course, the mayor has some board and commission appointments, and also has a veto over council action. So the mayor of Bloomington actually has many of the resources that a governor of a state has, or even the president of the United States. And so as an executive chosen from throughout the city, the mayor needs to lead. And lead doesn't mean you tell people what to do. Lead means you say, hey, we need to go from A to Z. And I think we can all agree we need to go to Z. When you start getting distracted when you're at M, N, O, and P, you remind people to stay the course.
Let's talk about some of the issues that you brought up when you announced your campaign a year ago in June. One of them was, in fact, I think it was the very first one, was a more open government. And you looked at things like we want to have mayoral meetings with the public, we want to have live broadcasts of the city council meetings, et cetera. Where are you with that?
Well, absolutely, all of the above. My vision of City Hall is one that's surrounded by windows so that any citizen from any part of town can walk up, look in, and see what they're paying for. So I want to bring citizens back inside City Hall. As I said many times on the campaign trail, come on inside. It's where you belong. We need your ideas, we need your energy, and we need your creativity. So the way that I want to bring people back inside City Hall, we've already had one of them, is a mayoral open house every Friday before a Monday city council meeting. So the agendas will go out on Wednesday, and if people have questions, or even if it's not on the agenda, they can come in and they don't have to make an appointment, just come in and sit and talk to the mayor. We had about 25 people last Friday that came before the Monday city council meeting, and we had a wide-ranging conversation about all kinds of things, and I think that's the way it should be. And I also want to bring the City Hall to people with neighborhood-based town hall meetings. So the alderman from an area and then the mayor and the city manager would go into community associations or neighborhoods and talk to people in an environment that they're most comfortable, almost literally their own backyards.
The council meetings are streamed on the internet,
correct,
but not broadcast.
Right. I'd like to have them broadcast. I think the most open government, the better.
Let me ask you about the meeting where 25 people attended. What was the number one thing you heard from citizens?
That's a really hard question because we talked about a lot of things. People are, I think, probably everybody who attended would have agreed that we need more openness and transparency and that we need to be more responsive. And I think they probably all would agree that things have gotten better even over the last several years. So it's not as if it's perhaps as close as it might have seemed 5 or 10 years ago or 8 years ago. So I think they would agree on that, and that we need to fix our streets and infrastructure. And Bloomington streets, you drive down some of them and you realize we need to make critical investments.
We're going to talk about streets in just a moment,
sure.
But I want to stay in the openness in government. Okay. Because you ran afoul of the state attorney general recently because the city has not been reviewing closed session or executive session minutes with any regularity. And I believe the Attorney General indicated it has to be twice a year that you review them.
Correct.
And you haven't reviewed them in 6 years.
Right.
And so those are still private, closed minutes. How are you going to address this issue?
Well, first of all, let me clarify. I didn't run afoul.
I didn't mean you. I meant you, the city.
And
You,
we,
the
we are
city.
going. We
Yeah.
actually already are. We were moving forward with this. I mentioned at our council retreat a week ago, Monday, and at Monday's city council meeting. We're not even going to take the 6 months to handle these executive session minutes. Myself and Alderwoman Stearns and potentially one other alderman are going to begin to kind of as a work group go through these in the next few weeks. And we're going to release them. You know, I don't think that there's anything sinister. I think it was just people were busy and it appears sloppy, and that's what we're going to stop. So we are going to release them, and I think we're going to be able to do it ahead of time, and we're going to keep on top of that in the future so that people know this is their city hall and they can get access to whatever they need.
Okay, then let's turn to streets, infrastructure in general. Depending on what numbers you look at, I think the high number was $60 million. The city is in arrears in street repair. I don't believe the city has $60 million to apply to street repair.
I can pretty much assure you that we don't have $60 million.
So what are you going to do?
Well, there are several things. First of all, actually, the figure is $41 million to get to our streets being okay. And that we don't even have. But what we're working on, and by we're, myself, the city manager, and the city council members, and particularly the members of the finance subcommittee, are working on developing a plan where we will float a bond somewhere around $10 million. That's just a real rough ballpark, to add to the $4 million that are allocated this year for street repair. And that we can afford, and it's without raising taxes. We're going to be able to afford to do that, and that'll at least sort of be a down payment. Now, even if we had $41 million dropped on us tomorrow, you can't just put that money into fixing your streets at one time, because many of the streets need to have their sewers fixed. We don't want to pave over streets and then have to tear them up in order to fix the sewers. So this is a several-year process for us to really get to the point where we have a first-class infrastructure.
And paying off those $10 million worth of bonds in the years to come won't adversely affect the city budget?
Well, it's something we'll have to budget for. We can't take $10 million out of 1 year's budget. We have a $169.4 million budget. 10 million, we're not going to find 10 million in 1 year, but we can certainly find $1 million over 10 years. And of course, we get the value of that beyond just the 10 years, or let's say a 5-year, loan. We're also considering making critical investments in things such as the Hamilton Road extension. And if we get the Hamilton Road extension in, we're going to reduce dramatically the traffic on Veterans Parkway during peak times. You'll be able to go from Corporate South State Farm to Interstate 74 on a 4-lane highway without ever going on Veterans Parkway. So I think these are things that we can afford, that we're moving ahead with. I've instructed staff to go full speed ahead because frankly, I think we've been penny wise and dollar foolish not to invest in our infrastructure in recent years. And now we're moving ahead. Our city's finances are stabilized, and we certainly should thank the city council and the city manager and Mayor Stockton for helping to stabilize our city's finances. But now we have some neglected needs.
As mayor, do you envision what's commonly called the Eastern Bypass on your radar? Is that on your radar?
It's on my radar. It has to be on my radar because it's been proposed. When I was on the county board, actually, I did vote against it. There is some new evidence that I'm, re-examining my position on this. It is something that's, way into the future. One of my concerns about the East Side Bypass, as it's been called, is that it assumes that Bloomington is just going to continue to sprawl to the east. And I don't know that that's inevitable, and I don't think that's necessarily desirable. And that's the type of debate that I want to have with the council and our community.
Staying on the topic of infrastructure, you depend on lake water primarily for water source.
That's correct.
In years of drought, you've already learned
that's true.
That's not a very good plan.
Absolutely.
So you're looking at tapping into the aquifer, the Muhammad Aquifer, through wells, and you're going to do that in a regional approach?
Absolutely. I think that's the only way to go, because we can't realistically tap into the Muhammad Aquifer by drilling anywhere in the city of Bloomington. And so we don't want to be vulnerable to drought-like conditions. We shouldn't have to wait for a crisis to force us to act. I think we need to be more proactive about that. I've said that when I announced, I said that throughout the campaign, when I went door to door and talked to people in our city. In addition to our streets, they were quite receptive to the idea that we didn't want to be vulnerable to droughts in the future, and that really our decision makers, our elected officials, need to check their egos at the door and come together to solve a community problem.
Have you had discussions with other communities?
Actually, I have indirectly, and we've also, City Manager David Hales and I have spoken with the head of Illinois EPA about many of our water issues, and we're going to be meeting again with her next month, either in Springfield or in Bloomington. So we're definitely moving ahead on water as well.
You're familiar with the Clinton landfill, Peoria Disposal Company. It wants to put PCBs in there. That's polybiphenyl, polychlorinated biphenyls. And that would sit right above the Muhammad Aquifer.
Right.
Are you concerned as an individual? Are you concerned about that?
I am concerned as an individual. I'm concerned as mayor, as an elected official. Absolutely, terribly concerned about that.
And I believe Bloomington has entered with other communities in a complaint filed with the Illinois Pollution Control Board.
Yes, and I would do everything I could to, as mayor of Bloomington, to stop that.
Let's turn to the economy. You're talking about issuing some bonds, you're talking about roadways and expenses. You got to pay for that.
That's absolutely right.
Increased property taxes would be a source.
No, increased property, that's one thing that I promised when I ran. I would not support an increase in property taxes.
I don't mean increased rate, I mean increased new property taxes.
You mean on new homes?
On new businesses.
If we had new homes, or new businesses,
Yeah.
sure.
And so, when you announced a year ago, you said you wanted to attract new business.
Absolutely.
How are you going to do that?
Well, in a variety of ways. One of the things that we're starting out with in the short run is revitalizing downtown Bloomington. And I've talked about possibly having a hotel across from the Coliseum, attracting a private company to invest across from the Coliseum. What that would do is to help us get new venues, new gigs, and that would reduce the red ink at the Coliseum. That would free up money for us actually to help fix some of our streets and our other needs. It would also be a source of jobs and economic stimulus. And capital attracts capital. So if we were to have a hotel across from the Coliseum and more activity there, we're more likely to be able to get either an overflow hotel across the street or light retail, new restaurants. So we want people to come back to downtown Bloomington. It's a beautiful historic area. It's the historic core of our community. It's the cultural core of our community, an incredible source of large numbers of artists. And we want to bring people back to see the value of downtown.
As I look at downtown, you've got the Performing Arts Center, you've got U.S. Cellular, and a hotel would be the third leg to the stool. What are the chances? Have you even had time to look at the possibility of a new hotel to make all this big
absolutely.
difference?
I had not only had time, I spent months during the campaign trail talking to people about this, including Chris Coos in Normal, who they're already trying to get an overflow hotel in Uptown. And people, Crystal Howard from the Bloomington Normal Convention and Visitors Bureau, and people in the hotel industry, people who are economists, and for all kinds of reasons. We should, I mean, the location is the logistical issue, but we already have really high occupancy rates in Bloomington Normal. And obviously we've got the highest education level, the highest income level, we got a strategic location. So there are lots of assets that we have. And Bloomington is one of the few cities in the Midwest that has 80,000 people, and you can't even rent a single room in our downtown. So it's not like a company coming in would have much competition, at least in the short run. So I think there are a lot of advantages for us to possibly getting a hotel in downtown. Now, it might not be directly across from the Coliseum. There are some other locations. It would have to be fairly close to the Coliseum. But whatever it is, I want to make it clear that Bloomington is open for business, and we're proactive, and we're willing to work with you if you're interested in investing in our great community.
But it sounds like you don't have a contact yet with a corporate hotel owner.
Not a specific person who's interested, not yet.
Okay.
Right. But we're working on it.
Bloomington did hire a new economic development manager or
coordinator.
Coordinator.
Correct.
Coordinator.
Justine Robinson.
And How are you going to effectively use her?
Well, I'd hope we could work together in a lot of ways. We already, have. We're already talking a little bit about what we might do with some of our economic development projects and our infrastructure projects like the Hamilton Road extension. I spoke with her even before the election about downtown Bloomington and how we might move forward there. So I'm hoping we might have some sort of short-term task force that might include Justine and people from the Economic Development Council to come up with some real tangible ideas and proposals. And I don't mean a task force that is charged with making some pie-in-the-sky recommendations. I mean tire hits the pavement kinds of recommendations. So I think that I look forward to working with Justine in a variety of ways. And she's got all kinds of energy. She's ready to get moving. And I want to make sure that she's really busy.
Might someone from the Downtown Business Association be involved in that?
Oh, it would be essential. That would, no question about that.
A lot of commissions in Bloomington.
Correct.
Some of them have openings. Are you going to downsize commissions based upon your decision to downsize the Liquor Commission? Is that a philosophy that you embrace?
Well, the Liquor Commission is unique. Actually, the Liquor Commission and the Library Board are two unique situations in Bloomington. The Liquor Commission, I could just actually, as mayor, have abolished the Liquor Commission and had the model that they have in Normal. The mayor is the Liquor Commissioner. I wanted to make sure that there were people who were wiser than me in dealing with liquor issues, who knew more about that, who were around me. So in the short run, I just downsized it. So we just have 3 commissioners plus me. And it also helped, frankly, yesterday we had our first meeting, and we've usually had, often they've lasted for hours. It only lasted 24 minutes. So I think that it'll be a little more efficient there. That's not necessarily the same philosophy of reducing other boards and commissions. There are some building commissions that probably can be collapsed. And so that's what I'm working with City Manager David Hales on right now.
With regard to the Liquor Commission, you're retaining Mr. Stockton,
I've asked him to stay on. He said he would do it for approximately 6 months, and that would as a kind of a transition.
And I believe Mr. Jordan is formerly a member of the Illinois Liquor Commission.
That's correct. Yes, he's got great experience. So with Jim Jordan, Steve Stockton, and then the third person is Jeff Tompkins. These are people who have been involved in liquor issues in downtown and throughout the city.
And we probably should clarify, Mr. Tompkins was your campaign treasurer, is that correct?
That's correct. Actually, I had asked him, he and former Mayor Rich Buchanan had come to me about 3 years ago, and they said, we don't always agree with you, but we like you, and we'd support you in the next election. And they both had supported Steve Stockton in the last election, and so I thought that I wanted to make clear I wanted to build a broad coalition to bring people together. And so that's when I asked Jeff, I said, well, would you serve in this capacity because you've been a treasurer in other campaigns? So he has continued to serve.
And Mr. Stockton appointed him to the Liquor Commission.
Mr. Stockton appointed him to the Liquor Commission, that's correct. And I mentioned Rich Buchanan because he had also been on the Liquor Commission, but because he got elected to the county board, there was a conflict, and he stepped down a few months ago.
Let's stay on the question of liquor, and that is there has been a liquor license moratorium in place. That expired here recently. The official moratorium expired recently. In essence, that's been extended. Is that fair to say?
Well, let's be clear. It's not a liquor moratorium for liquor licenses throughout Bloomington.
No.
It's in downtown.
Downtown.
And essentially, we could have put it on the agenda on Monday. Frankly, there were so many other things that we had to deal with, including electric aggregation, that we didn't bother to do that. I made it clear during the campaign and as mayor and liquor commissioner that I won't be giving any new liquor licenses out on the 400, 500, and 600 block of Main Street. So, in effect, the liquor moratorium will continue.
Until the report from David Hales comes back, which is due when?
Sometime in June. There may be a little bit of a delay, but sometime in June.
And what might that include?
Oh, it'll be pretty comprehensive in giving recommendations about what we need to do to stabilize the situation in downtown. And so, at this point, I don't want to speak for David Hales, but I'm sure it'll be comprehensive.
You mentioned electric aggregation. Let's talk about that. The community voted in favor of going after a lower rate by going out and talking to different companies, and the community passed that. And now it's time for you to step forward and sign some documents and go out and find that good rate.
Actually, I already have.
You found a good
I
rate.
did it just before we came here.
Okay. And for the record, this was taped a day before it aired, so
Right.
So for our conversation,
actually, I think it was 12:05. The bidding ended at 12, and we saw the data, and there were other municipalities in the room. This was in Bloomington City Hall, and so it's a 22-month agreement, and we did 100% green, which I think was the right thing for us to do. The cost differential is minimal.
green being just slightly more expensive than 70% green.
Than
100%
70% or whatever, absolutely. But the cost differential was ever so slight. But we have a 22-month agreement that I signed just about an hour ago.
Okay. You've mentioned Chris Koos, the mayor of Normal, and I want to talk about maybe not even limited to Chris in Normal, but what about collaboration with other governmental bodies?
That is absolutely essential. And when I ran 4 years ago and when I ran this time, I said it was absolutely critical that we do that. When I was on the county board for 12 years, we were trying to get local governments to work together on a broad range of issues. And of course, the county encompasses, it's the venue in which you figure that would happen. We have over 190 local governments and taxing bodies. And that's another issue. I think that's crazy. But we have them. We have to try to bring people together. And sometimes it was like herding cats. And it was a very, very difficult process. And especially Bloomington and Normal, though, there are so many commonalities. And we shouldn't have a go-it-alone attitude. We might be two cities, but we're one community. And I'm happy to say that I talk to Chris Koos about as often as I talk to David Hales. We are in constant contact. We know we've got common issues. And we know that there are a lot of possibilities for collaboration that have been opportunities in the past that we haven't taken advantage of.
An example.
Well, one thing that we're working on immediately, well, is on the table, is a Northeast Bloomington fire station facility, or Bloomington and Normal fire station. Both Bloomington and Normal have similar need, and we might very well be able to come together in the construction and operation of this facility.
And the money would come from both Bloomington and Normal?
Both Bloomington and Normal. Again, we haven't worked out details of this. At this point, we're at the conceptual level.
The devil's in the details.
The devil
okay,
is.
what firefighter positions will be assigned to that house
Sure.
from Bloomington, and which ones from Normal, et cetera?
But I want to make it clear that from my perspective, the broader goal is what's important. Serving the people of both Bloomington and Normal efficiently, effectively. And that has to be the main thing. And as I say, we need to check our egos at the door and do what's in the broader interest. We don't see it in Springfield very often, and we sure don't see it in Washington.
But you're not talking about metro government.
I'm not talking about metro government. I don't think that would be possible.
Okay. So let's turn to another way that you might be able to save money, and that would be privatization of certain services.
Correct.
Are you going to look at that? And if so, what areas will you be looking at?
Well, privatization is one of the many options that you can have to possibly deliver public services. And we actually do much of that. Even with, for example, there's some private contractors that come in and fix some of our streets, and then they often subcontract with a group. The problem with doing that is, in any situation, when you contract out, you lose control. Now, you may save money, and it might be worth it in the long run, but you've got to realize that you lose administrative control over it. In fact, I was out on the 1200 block of Jefferson Street yesterday in Bloomington, and we've had a situation where there was a contractor and a subcontractor, and the street is kind of a mess. And this is the city's responsibility because we contract with them, but we'd have had greater control if it were our own public service workers. So I think on a case-by-case basis, you have to say, all right, can our public service workers, or can our police officers or firefighters, paramedics, can they perform a particular function? And what is the cost if we're going to privatize part of that out? And what would the cost and the possible benefits that we have to weigh? I was against the managed competition policy, however, just to be clear, that ultimately has now been abandoned by the city because it seemed as if it put our public service workers and others in a situation where they felt like their jobs could be contracted out at any time. And I think that hurts morale.
There's a tradition on this program with Steve Stockton, with Judy Markowitz before him, et cetera, that the first visit to the at issue set by the Bloomington mayor, you get about 30 seconds to say anything you want. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds. You can thank the public. I don't care what you do, but you get 30 seconds. This is the last time you get this opportunity.
Okay. Well, I would say, H, that obviously I want to thank the public, but I also look forward to being mayor. I know that there have already been some really tough decisions that have aggravated people, and some people who have been my supporters in the past. But I know that there are certain things that have to be done, and I'm willing to do it. I enjoy being mayor, and I want to work with more people and really open up the process. They feel proud of their government. And if I succeed, then I'll be happy after 4 years.
Okay, Terry Renner, congratulations again on
Thank
your
you.
election, and thank you for joining us on At Issue.
Thank you, H. Appreciate it.
From the mayor of Bloomington to the mayor of Galesburg, that is the topic for next week's At Issue. John Pritchard, the newly elected mayor in the city of Galesburg, will be our guest. Please join us then.